Hello everyone, I am going to mess around with the Iridium and the Pro3 some more. This time I'm just going to try to mess around with it and see where we come up with and answer questions. If you have questions, please post them. Shout out to Vilms, who's on the Electronauts forum, who kind of led me to exploring some of this stuff. This is... The one thing that he pointed out that's really cool is that in the mod matrix, if you add a controller from the Iridium itself, and then you're using CV from something like the Pro3, or obviously if you have modular, you can plug that right in as well. Note that on the Iridium, there's 4 inputs. There's also a gate input, but there's not outputs. So we have to just use audio in that case. In that note, by the way, one thing the Pro3 is very good at is it can capture its own audio and put it out through CV, which is really nice. Sometimes if you just want to warble something up, you can use the audio of the Pro3. And similarly, with the Iridium, because I have everything set up, I can route the Iridium audio through the Pro3 back into itself through CV. Anyway, I haven't explored all this stuff, but the one thing I wanted to mention was the controller. So the mod matrix on the Iridium has the ability to use a controller on each mod slot. So it's pretty crazy because there's 40 mod slots, and each slot obviously has a source and destination, and then you can set the amount that you want, which is basic stuff. But what's a little more advanced is each one of those can have a controller. So for example, there's 6 LFOs on the Iridium, and those can be polyphonic. Pretty ridiculous, but you can go in and say, okay, I want to make an LFO that is changing the amount of the CV on each of those mod slots, per note, which is pretty crazy. So this one, what I did just to do it, I'll turn latch off so we don't have so much stuff going on, but every time I press a note, what it's doing is it's taking the controller, which is a random trig basically, and that's changing the amount that we have for each of these. So the first slot that I have is, this one's going to the wavetable effects. So if I go and look at Oscillator 1, we have all sorts of different parameters, and we're just going to mess around with a few of them. So wavetable effects is currently set to gain. Let me change that to drive, which will be distortion. So different tone. I'm going to latch that and play that just for a second. So that's kind of changing. So mess around with the amount here. Not a whole lot of difference. So if I disable all the mod slots, that's what you're getting. This one I don't hear as much, so I'm going to change this one. So let me change this one. This one's wavetable effects. So I'm routing CV3, which is taking a Oscillator 3, which is a sine wave, and it's at a pretty low octave, going into the wavetable effects. Let me change this one. Let's just try something. We'll try wavetable. So this is changing the wavetable. This is going to probably sound crazy. Yeah, all right, let's latch that and see what we get. It's not as crazy sounding as I thought. It's probably because... There we go. Starting to get some craziness in there. Maybe put some reverb on that. I'm not going to win awards for that, but just messing around here, trying to keep this pretty open. Let me turn the reverb off, And let's go back to this. Let me actually, I'm going to do it in a knit patch, just kind of force myself to go from the beginning so you can follow along. So I just did it in a knit patch. And just so you know, you're hearing the Iridium. I'm not playing the Pro3. I'm using the Pro3 to route through CV into the Iridium. And I'm going to do more videos on the Pro3 because it's an amazing synth by itself. In fact, this is one of the things I just did last night, was just to get the sequencer all hooked up through the Pro3. So this is sending notes into that, but it's coming through CV. Let me stop that. So maybe we'll use that later. All right, but let's start with just routing one slot. So let's go ahead and take slot number 1, and let's take CV1, and then I'm gonna route that to, I don't know, pitch is probably the first one I did. Okay, pitch. And this is gonna sound rough because this is linear FM, so it's gonna sound a bit rough, but okay, and so here I have the octave switch, so I can change this. Boy, why is that so low? Play a higher note, see if we can get it. Okay. That's weird, I don't have it filtered. It sounds so... Let me change, I'm going to change to Oscillator 1. I'm going to change Oscillator 1 to be a waveform so we get something bright. There we go. Now let me, going to add some kernels. So I'll add 4 kernels in here. And let me add some warp. A few more harmonics. There we go, that's nice. So now when I turn this down, okay. So that's just straight up. So they play that note and then add. So you can hear the pitch changing because it's linear FM instead of exponential. But you know, sometimes if you want something really gritty, that could be cool. What I'm going to do is hold that note. I know it sounds annoying. Let me see if I can. I'll play an annoying note and then just show you that the pitch is attached to Oscillator 1. So I'm going to change the pitch of Oscillator 1. So what's really amazing about this is kind of my dream setup, is to be able to have all this craziness going on. But you know, you heard when I changed the pitch that we get that effect. And let me turn that down so it's not too crazy. So then you can't hear it as much, so hold on, I gotta get it right here. There we go. But now what you can do is you can go on the Pro3 and you could say, oh, well, let me mess with the pitch on Oscillator 1. So I could go in and say, well, let's take Oscillator 3 and mess with the pitch of Oscillator 1. So I could say, take this and change the destination to this and give me an amount. So you could do stuff like this. Or you could route noise to that, or you could route, you know, an LFO. You could just you could just go nuts. So it'd be pretty fun. All right, so there's pitch. Let's just go through a couple like really basic ones. Let's go to since this is, let's do mix actually. So this gives you amplitude modulation. So you can hear pitch a little bit, but it's coming through differently because it's just turning the volume up and down really, really fast on the oscillator. All right, let's go to the next one. So that was mix. Let's try pan. See if we get anything. One thing I do is I like to hit a note and then just change the pitch, at least when I'm doing audio rate modulation, because sometimes there's nothing actually happening and you can fool yourself. So holding a note and then doing this, you can hear, pitch is actually, or excuse me, pan is actually giving you some results, which is interesting. Let's go to, okay, this is a waveform, so let's do waveform warp. I'm surprised that isn't crazier. I would think that would be nuts. Let me change the oscillator shape maybe to square wave, do some pulse width modulation and see. Okay, there we go, it's a little crazier. And here's where you can kind of fool yourself, because it might just be the Iridium being, you know, just doing its own thing. But I said this in the last video, but being able to mute the, so that's normal. This is with that modulation. So what's cool is you're like, hey, we found something cool. And then now what you can do is you can put a controller on top of that. So whether you're going to use an envelope or an LFO or something. So let's take that warp and let's have it change with each note randomly. So I'll put a controller on here and let's do random trig. So every time I press a note, it's going to pick a different value. It has its own control amount, so I'm going to turn down the main amount up above to 0. And then I'm going to turn on the control amount. Let's do all the way up. And then every time I press a note, it's going to use a different value. Sometimes you can't hear this, so one thing that's easy to do is just do a latch and then play or set up a sequence, just a basically a running note, and then let's just, so you can start to hear it a little bit. And of course, we'll put some reverb on that. Maybe actually, let's put some delay on it first. Now let's put some reverb on it. Okay. And let's go back and look at this. Okay, so we got our little warp thing going, which is kind of cool. But let's go ahead and add some filter modulation in there. So I'm going to take the next slot, and I'm going to put, I like using CV3 because it's a sine wave. The reason I do that is CV1, I have oscillator 1, CV2, CV3. So these top two are VCOs, which are really cool, but they also are, they usually go from triangle to saw to square, and I just want a sine wave for modulation, so that's why I use oscillator 3 a lot. All right, so let's put oscillator 3 to filter. Let's mess around with filter, and then I'll end this video. I haven't been keeping an eye on the time, so I don't know how long this video is getting. And if anybody has any specific questions, can definitely get into that. So let's go ahead and do filter cutoff with audio rate. So this is filter FM basically. So let's add in a lot of it. Okay, definitely getting the effect there. And again, we can confirm that effect by turning off mod slot. So this is without, this is with. Okay, let me turn off the top one. So this is with nothing. I do have those effects on, but I like the effects, so I'm gonna leave them on. So here's with the filter. Probably play a lower note. There we go. Now let's go ahead and mess with the filter. Actually, let me latch this so I can do it through here. Let's find a low note. It's too low. It's too high. Okay, there we go. That was the same note. All right, now we can play with the filter. Add some resonance. I'm going to change some of the filter modes. Right now this is SVF. I'm actually going to put that on. This is Largo. Turn down the resonance. Bring in the second filter. Okay. And the other thing you can change is the filter models themselves. stop that. Okay, I'll do one more thing and then I'll stop the video. I like hearing filter 1 and filter 2 because what's cool is they can both be different kind of models and types and would have different resonance settings. And there's even different modes to how they link together. So it's a very thorough filter section in my opinion. And there's this digital former on top of that. So there's a ton of stuff. But anyway, let me go and just do one more. So let's take CV3 again. We'll just use the same one. Actually, let's do CV2. So we might as well use a couple of different ones. So CV2. And then we're going to route that to the filter, which is down here, and we'll do filter 2, cutoff. So there we go. And then we'll turn up the value. So let's get that up high. Tune this later. Okay, so we have all this stuff going. Now, let's go ahead and see if we can mess with the filters. Let me turn this off. Okay, so it is having an effect. It's a little more subtle, but now, okay, let's lock this in again. This one. Now let's play with the filters with this CV running. All right, so I hope you get the idea there. I'm going to stop there because I'm probably doing this all day, to be honest. Thank you very much for your time. And if you have any questions or comments, let me know. Thanks a lot. Bye.